This week in Jamaica Now.
Everything gone, don't know what to do no more.
Despair. Some St. Catherine residents get 48 hours to prove they own lands to avert demolition. How did one of Jamaica's most wanted men escape custody?
A prisoner is not supposed to escape custody from a cell.
The Lentz prosecutors claimed a policeman went to conceal the alleged murder of his girlfriend, Donna-Lee Donaldson. And more than 24 children massacred in Thailand. I'm Jovan Johnson and this is Jamaica Now. Despair hovered among some residents Thursday as the government started the process to demolish 30 unfinished houses that were illegally built on state lands near the community of Clifton in Bernard Lodge, St. Catherine. Prime Minister Andrew Holness gave notice in Parliament on October 5 that a criminal gang had captured the lands and was fraudulently reselling the properties.
The SCJ has given warning and served notice to cease and desist. The capturing and illegal construction has continued to the point where some 30 structures have been identified. Let me be clear. The government wants every Jamaican to be able to own their own home and a piece of Jamaica. But it must be done orderly and lawfully. This illegal capturing and building on public or private land will not be tolerated.
On the day of the demolition, the cries of Chanel Francis dominated. She lamented losing the $800,000 she said she paid for her lot.
Me go look work, just if we compare work, man. And everything, see that, everything gone, don't know what to do no more.
So the $800,000 that you paid for the land, who you paid to?
Me paid to my hairdresser introduced me to the man. And me get the receipt, then give them me TRN and my ID and they turn up the receipt give me. They send the receipt give me. Nobody not give me no look one, no look nothing, no give me. No, I thought me just have pause and so I tell me so I like down the plane. Me just have to work for go work. I see that work for go work. I change it and me go work in the mountain because I not have it come here see if it belongs so. So I don't know what to do.
Meanwhile, the demolition was halted after the crew destroyed 10 of the units. The residents were told that they would be given 48 hours to produce a certificate of possession for the plots of land they now occupy. The lands are part of the government's Greater Bernard Lodge Development Project. Approximately 15,000 new housing solutions are programmed for construction. The lands are owned by the government's Sugar Company of Jamaica Holdings Limited. Legal and Constitutional Affairs Minister Marlene Malahoo Ford has tabled a proposed bail law that would restrict bail for certain categories of accused persons. Among other things, it's being proposed for bail to be denied in cases where self-defense does not arise, where the murder takes place under zones of special operations or states of emergency.
I cannot overemphasize the need for careful reading of the provisions. Our tendency to talk about what we think the law is or what we think it should be without reading and assessing what is actually drafted has been quite unhelpful in debates on bills before this Parliament. In our beloved country where we aspire for security and where we value our rights above all, there is no avoiding a balance between freedom and dignity on the one hand and security on the other. It was an eminent Chief Justice of a final court who said that human rights must not become a tool for denying security to the public and the state. A balance is required. A balance is required, a sensitive and difficult balance between freedom and dignity of the individual and national security and public safety.
The legislation also has a provision dealing with the granting of bail in certain circumstances whereby the defendant wears an electronic tracking device so that their movements can be monitored. Defense attorney Peter Champagny says while he understands the reasoning behind the geographical references in the bill, the provision may be subject to abuse. Meanwhile, another defense attorney, Clyde Williams, says he's concerned that the legislation would get rid of habeas corpus, a common law principle that gives the courts power to demand that someone in state custody be brought before it for inquiries. Speaking on Radio Jamaica's Beyond the Headlines on Thursday, he said the bill does not expressly remove the principle, but the language of Section 5, which deals with granting bail before a charge, suggests where the government's thinking is. That section also refers to persons detained but not charged as defendants, which Williams says is against settled law. Now, King's Counsel Champagny tweeted on Friday that the pre-charge bail element of the bill is good for practical purposes, although it is likely to be seen by some as unconstitutional. The search is still on for Rudolph Boxer Shaw, one of St. Catherine's most wanted men, who escaped from the Kingston Central Police Station lockup in downtown Kingston on Thursday morning. Mr. Shaw, who is facing 2 murder charges, was nabbed in the Cayman Islands in July and deported that month to Jamaica. The police say Mr. Shaw, who reportedly heads the wildlife gang, cut his way through a vent at the lockup. His lawyer, King's Counsel Peter Champagny, says he's now reconsidering whether he can continue to represent the accused killer.
It had been my intention to visit him later on this week. Of course, now that is certainly not possible. And in the circumstances, as I've said before, this is something that is shocking and should not be countenanced in any shape or form, and I'll have to revisit my representation in respect of this person.
And Police Commissioner Major General Anthony Anderson has ordered an immediate probe into the circumstances leading to the escape. This is a second high-profile jailbreak at the Kingston Central Police Station in less than a year. Last December, a corruption probe was opened by the force after 27-year-old Orville Purnell, who is wanted in St. Lucia on murder and other charges, reportedly walked out of the lockup. Since August last year, more than 10 criminals have escaped from lockups across Jamaica. Now, retired Senior Superintendent of Police Renita Adams says the Jamaica Defence Force should now be given the responsibility to guard high-risk prisoners.
The first thing, as I know it, having spent 41 years and 3 months in the Jamaica Constabulary Force, and the training I got, as far as I know, when a prisoner breaks out of cell or escape custody, the first indication is that it is a matter of a lack of proper supervision. If I were the commissioner, I would recommend to the minister to keep people like these at a park camp. I'm telling you what I would have done to manage to keep these people in custody in a year. I don't want to make a mistake. I would say state of falsehood. I don't remember during my administration in the police force if we have ever had a prisoner escape from custody, my custody.
A Supreme Court judge will rule on October 13 whether Noel Maitland, the policeman accused of killing his girlfriend Donna-Lee Donaldson, will be granted bail. The prosecution opposed bail during a hearing on Tuesday, and the detailed allegations against Mr. Maitland built on evidence collected from his Chelsea Manor apartment in St. Andrew. Ms. Donaldson's supporters protested outside the court, insisting that the accused cop not be granted bail. In damning allegations drawing on DNA and video footage, prosecutors cast Constable Maitland as a calculated killer who schemed to clean up evidence linking him to the death of his 24-year-old girlfriend. The court heard on Tuesday how Mr. Maitland allegedly went to lengths to enlist the help of accomplices in ridding a couch of bloodstains prosecutors say was Miss Donaldson's. Her body has not been found. She was last seen at Mr. Maitland's apartment on July 11. Now, Mr. Maitland reportedly visited a hardware on Constant Spring Road on July 13, where he entered into contractual arrangements with a truck driver to transport the bloody couch from his apartment to a car wash on Lyndhurst Road. The couch, described by eyewitnesses as red or brown, was allegedly loaded onto the truck by Mr. Maitland and another man. Now, Mr. Maitland allegedly told the female attendant at the car wash that his cousin had suffered an injury to his hand and suggested that bleach not be used as it would change the couch's color. He also allegedly supplied the attendant with 3 bottles of vinegar, which prosecutors claimed was to conceal the bloodstains and suppress the odor. The car wash attendant reportedly remarked that there was blood like rice grain coming from the couch. Prosecutors also said Mr. Maitland pressed a neighbour to delete footage on CCTV cameras. Mr. Maitland's attorney, Christopher Townsend, questioned the claims of the forensic material being found on curtains and shoes and accused the Crown of grasping at straws. Mr. Townsend further asserted that on 3 occasions the police forensics team did not find anything and that he was extremely suspicious of discoveries at his client's apartment. 12-year-old Lauren Jurick, who was found hanging from an apple tree in Broughton, Westmoreland on Tuesday, reportedly had a history of suicidal behaviour. His mother, Candine Palmer, has also said that a day before, Lauren had wronged a cousin and received a scolding from her, with the admonition that he should visit his relative and apologize. Hours later, the boy could not be found and his mother filed a report with the police on Monday night. Shortly after walking into her yard to fetch water Tuesday morning, Ms. Palmer said she was shocked to see Lauren's body hanging from a tree. And overseas, relatives wailed and collapsed in grief on Friday over the small coffins of children who were killed when an ex-cop stormed a daycare centre in Thailand. At least 24 of the 36 people killed in Thursday's grisly gun and knife attack were children, mostly preschoolers. Police identified the attacker as 34-year-old Panya Kamrup, who lost his job earlier this year because of a drug charge. Panya took his own life after killing his wife and child at their home. Back home, Jamaica Labour Party councillor for the Trafalgar Division in St Andrew, Carrie Douglas, escaped being fined after she was found guilty of disorderly conduct based on an incident involving the police in April 2020. The 36-year-old politician was admonished and discharged in the Kingston and St Andrew Parish Court on Tuesday. It was reported that Ms. Douglas was driving along Meadowbrook Avenue in St Andrew when she was reportedly stopped by the police and, while being questioned, became boisterous and hurled abusive language at the police. She was found guilty of disorderly conduct. A charge of breaching the COVID-19 curfew order was previously dropped after her lawyer, King's Counsel Peter Champagny, argued that she was returning home after delivering care packages. She got the light sentence after the lawyer told the court Ms. Douglas is a young and passionate politician whose heart is in the right place. Ms. Douglas is still before the court in a separate case on allegations she assaulted and obstructed a police officer. And that's it for this edition of Jamaica Now, your weekly review of the big news stories. Send us your comments at onlinefeedback@gleanerjm.com. Follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Jamaica Gleaner and on Facebook at Gleaner Jamaica. Like this video on our YouTube page, turn on the notification and subscribe today. I'm Jovan Johnson, and before we go, more from the demolition exercise at a community near Clifton in Portmore St. Catherine on August 6.
The operation, which began after 6 a.m. on Thursday morning, saw unoccupied and unfinished houses being demolished by large machinery.
The operation began shortly after 6 o'clock, maybe about 6:30 or thereabouts. Varying forms of manual and machine labor engaged in the process, being very careful and respectful of people's personal space, etc.
Subsequently, blockades were erected to cordon off the affected area, forcing scores of motorists to turn back and take alternate routes. JCF Communications strategist Dennis Brooks said though the operation is being undertaken by the Sugar Company of Jamaica Holdings, the police alongside the Jamaica Defence Force were present to keep the peace.
It's an operation that is being conducted by the Sugar Company of Jamaica. We as law enforcement are merely here based on our assessment of the space, our assessment of the situation. We're here just to provide the security necessary for the workmen to do their operation. 30 construction projects have been underway at various stages of completion. My information is that not all of them were set for demolition today. Our information is that unoccupied, unfinished homes were to be demolished today. Again, there are homes that are occupied that are not the subject of this process. There are homes that are not occupied, but they are near completion. They are not the subject of this process either. But the details of that, you'd have to speak to the relevant authorities.
I was made aware of the intended efforts for persons who are in unauthorized areas, and I presume any due process would be pursued. I've heard some things to the contrary this morning, which I've raised with the Prime Minister and SCJ. And I'm advised that they're going to be limited operation pending verification of those things which have been brought to my attention.
The
there are two sets of houses, okay? There is a set of houses that was constructed in the middle of the farmland. And then there are a much greater number nearer to the existing community. It is the ones that were in the farmland that were dealt with today, not the ones nearer the community.